They did it on cave walls, on wax cylinders. They did it in state-of-the-art digital storage. But
War never changes.
I was going to say YouTube. YouTube never changes.
that doesn't make any sense. YouTube wasn't around in caveman times.
Yeah, it was. 2005 was dark. Welcome, everyone, to the episode about Fallout. This is going to be a couple of things. Primarily, we're going to talk about what we thought of the show. But Cameron has actually played the dang games, and I have done a lot of Googling about the dang games. So it's primarily going to be me spouting off trivia about the show and games that you might not know, and Cameron actually talking about things that a lot of gamers that have played the stuff might know. So let's start off the episode with how we thought of the show. What did you think, Cameron?
When I first heard about the show, I was like, this is gonna suck so much if Bethesda has any hand in it. And I can safely say I was wrong.
Todd Howard, you son of a gun, you finally did it.
Did he like help produce it or something? How much of a hand did he have in this?
He was an executive producer, and apparently Jonathan Nolan, who is Christopher Nolan's brother, who also did Westworld and Person of Interest and a bunch of other stuff, he apparently approached Todd Howard to say like, yo, I loved Fallout 3. I really want to do the show. And Todd Howard's like...
Doesn't he know that Fallout New Vegas is the good one?
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't he listen to every single YouTuber with a mouth?
Yeah, I told him, he's just like, I love this series. I think it would be great. I want to adapt it. And so that was what I understood was the go-ahead, similarly to D&D going to George R.R. Martin and saying like, hey, we know this plot point. We know R plus L equals J. Let us make the show. And he's like, okay, fine. So Todd Howard apparently had a pretty good role in it, as well as apparently Tim Kaine, who made the first Fallout game. He didn't really have much of a hand in the show that I know of, but he watched the first 2 episodes early and gave it a sterling review. And then after the rest of the show came out, he's like, bro, perfect. The game that I made, him and several other people, very good. So it got stamp of approval from them.
I think the most spoiler-free thing I can say about the show is Fallout as a video game series is just like, it is a setting that is extremely interesting, where for some reason the games have like super underutilized a lot of that lore. I think the show really playing into the specific intrigue about how the world became that way and what it feels like to exist in that space outside of you being a cartoon caricature destroying whatever looks like anything with a fat man within 5 feet of you. I'm not surprised that it turned out so good, because you just need one competent writer to do anything with the story.
The thing that a lot of video game stuff I don't think like grasps sometimes is the fact that like it's a video game. You're supposed to play it. So for you to adapt it into something is like, I would rather play this. This looks boring. Did you see Advent Children Final Fantasy VII? I'd rather play that than watch it. But when you get something like this, where there's so much lore in the background, it makes it easier to then kind of connect some of those dots and be like, okay, well, we're talking about this vault. We're talking about this thing. We're talking about stuff that is very simple in the plot of Fallout, but a lot of those fun little like choices and other things you have going around are not only good to adapt, but then all of the other lore stuff that you can like weave into it. I think they did a really good job of just making it interesting to watch. There were so many points where I was watching it with my girlfriend and we just straight up were just like, wait, is that canon? What is this? Did this happen? I don't even remember this. And apparently this show does create new canon for Fallout. Like Todd Howard has said, this is canonical.
It's set after any of the games, as I understand it.
Because the last one's Fallout 76. Doesn't that happen in 76? Like not 2276?
No clue.
This one's in 2277.
Because I mean, that's the thing, is it is, if you know anything about Fallout New Vegas, a bunch of plot elements in it would only make sense after the game.
Yes, that's what they said. Because a lot of people are like, that doesn't sound canonical. This didn't happen. What about all this stuff in Fallout New Vegas?
I don't want to just rewatch a like Fallout game.
Yeah.
I want to like see something new, and having it expand the lore. It's so weird for me to think, wow, this game where you're supposed to care about the characters. I'm so glad the TV show focused on the characters.
Yeah,
because the games just, and that's the other funny thing. All the Fallout games, every single time something happens, you're just like standing where you are looking at it, and sometimes they'll cut away and show you like a wide shot. I've never experienced something cinematic.
There's work to be done now, but I want to talk to you about this later.
So it didn't seem hard to put literally anything like that into the show and make it like actually hit.
The closest thing I can think of, because I recently was watching it, it reinvigorated my love of Fallout 3, is Liberty Prime. You and I talked about it for a little bit. That there's this uber patriotic robot that the Brothers of Steel find and like turn on to fight. I think it was the Enclave or something.
Reach compound to
Restore democracy.
Probably one of the best and funniest things about Fallout.
And it's so good because he just runs around saying a bunch of diatribes about democracy.
While
and,
Iron Manning his bazooka arms everywhere.
Yeah, and he's like, the red menace must be evaporated. And there's one time in particular where it's like saying, everyone get a minimum safe distance away. I must destroy the red menace, and shoots a laser beam at a bunker and then takes out a nuke and like football throws it into the hole. So awesome. But the reason I bring that up is all of those scenes feel cinematic, but I agree with you that it's not like, it doesn't take your view and like zoom you in somewhere.
In the
it's game,
it's more like you're running at the Jefferson Memorial while shooting, and like a robot is saying funny things over your shoulder, but you're not getting like these like tight shots on a character's face, like, oh my god, this thing is happening, or like getting these like cool kind of moments, because you're supposed to be all the cool moments.
Well, first of all, Fallout 1 and 2 were not made by Bethesda. They were made by another team.
They were isometric RPGs. They were not third person or first person shooters. Like, you weren't in the character's like point of view.
But back in the day, it was like crazy good because not only it was the isometric view, so you could do a lot of those 3D elements and make them look kind of cool and do the pre-rendered art style. But when you saw something, it would show you like a quick CG view of it. And back in the day, it's like, oh my God, that's the coolest thing. First game came out in 1997. But this one, like Fallout 3, is the first one to be like...
That's the first one under the Bethesda umbrella.
Yeah, as well as a first-person shooter. And the funny thing about it is that it basically is Oblivion in apocalypse place.
Yeah,
with
they're like,
guns.
what if instead of arrows, you shot bullets?
Yeah, and so the closest thing to a cinematic thing is just like in Oblivion, they zoom into someone's face and they're like, hello, what would you like to know?
What? Are you serious?
I'm telling you, if you go on like any of the Fallout meme subreddits, it's always like someone awkwardly interrupts whatever you're doing as you watch a super mutant with a nuke run at you.
If you can make sure the old workshop there is still in one piece, how do you
That was the funniest thing about Fallout 4 was how often that would happen, because there's like this place right next to Diamond City where it just constantly happened to me.
Well, that and that a lot of the AI is buggy and fun. So you'll be like trying to navigate something, and then I think Fallout 4 is the one with Dogmeat, right?
I thought Dogmeat was in all of that.
Okay, because yeah, you'll be like navigating mines, and then it'll come over to you with like meat and blow everything up. So after us discussing how much we love Fallout, and I honestly haven't played it that much, but from what I've played, it's really fun, and it really has that distinct style. The 40s and 50s era of like, okay, everything's cool, it's the world of tomorrow, but watch out for nukes. They're gonna happen. Get under your desk, duck and cover. And so it has a lot of that aesthetic, but it is, the vaults were made in 2077. So it's still technically our future.
Technically, they're made in the, I think the first ones were built in like 2050s.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
There is like a really cool divergence starting in like 1950.
Sure.
From their history and our history that leads up until the 2200s, 2300s, and it's like, it's like one of those things where it's like, especially now, it feels weirdly prescient.
Oh God. Okay, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But the show goes into some of that with the stuff happening in like the 20s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, mostly 70s, and then we leap into the like current time, you know, where we're talking about things being in the current wasteland. And so this did, I think, an incredibly good job of marrying those two elements of like, here's some lore, but also here's what the Fallout games feel like. I love that kind of retro future style where it's like, well, here's old technology, but it is futuristic. So everybody's like going around and they have like, you know, a pinup like outfit and like pinstripe suit, but then there's a flying robot ball.
Welcome.
What the fudge?
I didn't really get into the Fallout series for much more than, oh, it's a fun shooter and it's kind of interesting. And I forgot how dark it is.
Oh God, it's delightfully dark. It's, I mean, that's the funny thing about Fallout. It is entirely, if anyone watched this show and was like, Fallout's, now they made Fallout woke, you were not paying attention at all to anything that's ever Fallout has always been an indictment of late stage capitalism and always been an indictment of warmongering, and like everything about it is like, yeah, it's literally the Fallout Boy. The band,
Fallout Boy,
the band, who's famous for doing all the music.
The Vault Boy?
Yeah, the Vault Boy. Everything he does is supposed to look chippy and cheerful, but literally everything he does is specifically like the thumbs up and everything specifically has to do with like, oh, is that nuke too close to me?
Well, that and that the character itself is reminiscent of that time, like I mentioned, Duck and Cover, where you're talking to children about an atomic bomb happening
Like they
and
can't
being
comprehend the hell that would have been unleashed on them.
yeah, so you're like, it's like you're in a kindergarten. You're like, oh, everything's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. And so, yeah, channeling a lot of that into a horrific place where your character is in this terrible, horrible wasteland, but your Pip-Boy sees like, he's like, oh, you're getting radiation, and like he has X's over his eyes and stuff like that.
I was really curious if they were going to play up a lot of the Pip-Boy jokes.
I was surprised they didn't, honestly.
I was proud of them. That took some restraint, because if I was in charge of the show, that would have been half the jokes.
Well, I was surprised how little they had the Vault Boy around, because I thought it would have been, if they really wanted to, they could have.
The joke though. Sorry, go ahead.
No, they just could have made it so peppy, like excitable, cartoony, where anything happens and then the Pip-Boy icon comes up and shows like, they're getting radiated. Oh, I look like this. Oh, there's the Deathclaw. Stuff like that, where it would have been like really stupid, but they play it pretty straight while still having a lot of dark humor that is reminiscent of all of the other games. And it reminded me that I'm like, oh, the games have always been like this. I just never thought about how messed up it is. And talking about Liberty Prime, I forgot, like back when we first played it, where I was just like, yeah, I guess I was like, oh, it's so funny that it's so patriotic. And then I'm like, oh no, this is like, I mean, it's funny, but it's also very dark about how that works. Last thing I want to say is that, yeah, this show is super violent, super gory. If you have
super fun.
And super fun. If you have any problems with that, you're probably not going to like it at all. There's some really gross stuff in there. If you don't like comedic gore, you're really going to
ass jerky.
They make ass jerky. That is true. As well as just people are just getting mutilated.
The year of our Lord 2024. I never thought I'd say ass jerky with a straight face.
Last thing that I want to say, the character that is played by the doctor that they're trying to find, he is one of the main characters from Person of Interest, that actor, which is one of Jonathan Nolan's.
And he was a person of interest in the show.
Thank you. You got to the point.
No, I figured it out.
Of the main actors, I think his name is Moises Arias is Norman, who's the main character Lucy's brother. He was in Hannah Montana, and as soon as he came up, I was like, what is happening?
That's how he got his place in the vault, because he was the little super capitalist boy.
Well, I find it so funny because he's 1 year younger than me, and he looked so young. But yeah, no, he plays like in Hannah Montana this gross like boss money grubbing guy, and then so for him to show up in a vault just makes a lot of sense.
That's why he got a spot. He was one of the rich capitalists who earned their place in a nice vault.
He was in a luxury vault.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh yeah, one last piece of trivia. Todd Howard, just before we get into this, I know you don't usually like to listen past the spoilers when you're watching our little shows, so just want to say it before then. Maybe you should have never made video games. Maybe you should have just made TV shows.
I mean, yeah, right? Because it came out pretty great, and a lot of people have said that Fallout 1 and 2 laid the groundwork for all of the cool stuff. Like people have said that Fallout 3 and 4 are the watered down versions of Fallout 1 and 2, and that Fallout New Vegas kind of gets back there in a way, where it has more lore and more stuff.
Like there's a lot of tissue that is like comes together in 1 and 2, because they like obviously were like starting from scratch. Every YouTuber who has ever played a video game will tell you, like, yes, Fallout New Vegas, like 4 different missions all lead to the same end place. So it feels like everything's connected. Like this person's water problem, this person's weird alien plant problem, and this person's desire for like help with the vaults all are the same problem.
And the last thing I'll say before we get into spoilers is, my God, that season teaser that they started doing at the end of episode 1 of all of these series.
They do it at the end of every episode. Why?
Did they really?
Yeah,
I didn't even notice that.
For like the first 4 episodes they would do it, and I'm like, why are you ruining this for me?
It was obnoxious, mostly because like I didn't watch that, but then when I went back through and we watched episode 1 together, and then I watched the rest of the series, and so when I went back to be like, oh, what happened in episode 1? The end of it, that teaser shows all of the fun bits. So don't watch that if you haven't seen the show, because my God, it was so frustrating that if I had seen that, I would have been like, oh, I guess I'm waiting for this to happen. Oh, when they say like, oh, well, they're going here, you can see the visual, like you know where they are. Some of them are landmarks. So it was obnoxious. So don't do that. I hate when shows do that. Literally, after the thing happens, like the show ends, and then you see that cool cinematic credits. I'm like, cool, I'm just gonna enjoy this. Like this season on, I'm like, oh, where's the remote? I need to stop the damn thing. This sucks.
Yes.
So yes. Now, spoilers. I hit my soda. Okay.
You don't want to do another take of that?
No. Lucy's dad did a megaton.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that I thought, because I mean, so big spoilers, because this is basically the last reveal. But my God, the entire show, I was waiting for those Fallout style, like, you have to make a choice. And they literally say it. They're like, the world's about choices and you need to make a choice. And your dad made a choice.
Yeah.
And the entire time I'm like, I swear at some point somebody's going to have to make the Megaton decision. And for those of you that don't know, there's a city called Megaton in Fallout 3. And you can go nuke it within the first like hour of the game and just destroy it and never be able to go back because it's irradiated for the rest of the game. And in the show, I was waiting for something like that, some sort of decision like that to happen. And the entire time it was sitting in the background to be like, oh, somebody nuked this city. That was totally cool.
Yeah.
Wonder who it was.
No, that was the like beauty of it. So like, Lucy's talking about like, yeah, I remember when I was a kid, I used to think the big light in the sky was the sun. He's like, it was the sun. You were outside.
Oh yeah.
Because her and her brother were there with
Moldaver.
Moldaver and her mother. And then the dad did a big genocide and also a big, I do not care much for all of you, and destroyed Shady Sands.
That reveal that the dad is a middle manager and that all of the overseers of 31 and 32 are
Betty?
just middle managers.
That took me like forever to realize the same Betty that introduces him to the guy who plays the Ghoul. That is the same Betty that's been the overseer the entire show.
Oh my God. Oh, that's good.
She's one of Bud's buds.
Yeah, Bud's. Little brain. Yeah, which was funny to see a Robo Brain as like a little overseer kind of guy where you're just like, okay, just shoot it. He'll be fine. It'll just blow it up. That's what you do in the games. But
I love the part where it's like, because that's the exact kind of humor you see in certain parts of the game where it's like, and now I have to stick you with this. No, please do not move.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think Sam pointed out to me, it like literally says like the brain on a Roomba. It says
all of these comedic elements, but having those parts of Fallout show up that I was not expecting. I was like, this is just going to be a fun little romp. Oh, they're probably going to talk about choices, because similarly, the Witcher show in the first episode had that kind of like moral dilemma. Well, you know, two people can't win, so what do we do? And the idea that
you cut the baby in half, obviously.
Exactly. Yeah, you cut the thing in half and you have the wisdom of Solomon. You're a genius and you become Shazam. And so the fact that it shows up in this show like that, I was very surprised. I was like, this is great.
That literal moment at the very end where Moldaver has Lucy's dad in a cage and it's like, big reveal. And you're standing there, it's like, what do? Do you push the button and activate the cold fusion machine, or do you shoot your dad?
Yeah, straight up, like literally, I can see it's just like, okay, now take control of your character and walk over to one of the two for Lucy. As well as, I don't know if it was a nod, but we were talking about how like cinematically everybody like zooms in on their like shoulders. It's like, what would you like to know about this or that? But at the end, when she's talking with her dad, they have that kind of framing where they're both like center framed looking, and it just keeps switching between the two of them, and it feels like that. And I was like, I don't know if this is a nod, but it's really good. Like, it feels great. That entire ending was very satisfying, because I was talking with my girlfriend, and I'm just like, I don't think they're going to resolve this. I think that's going to be left for season 2 as like a cliffhanger. I'm like, I don't think we're going to find out what's in Vault 31. I don't think we're going to find her dad. It's just going to be an annoying cliffhanger. And then both of them are paid off within literally the same moment, and it's great.
See, that's good storytelling, is where the reveal is exactly like one scene away, and all the build up, like they didn't have to exposit anything. You spent all show getting all the pieces, and they didn't organize or snap into place until you get that one scene, that one last piece of information, which they totally landed.
Hell yeah. And there's a very good video essay about that. I'll put in the description. It's become my favorite thing. The one bad part about that is when they revealed the thing about Hank, that de-aging looked bad.
I know.
He's a little Gumby man. Not look good.
His teeth were so weird.
I was so confused because I'm like, you have footage of him from Dune and from Twin Peaks. How did you not deepfake him on some guy? It deliberately looked like, okay, first of all, it was the actor, but then he has like a jowl now, so they smoothed over the jowl.
I'm just imagining like just like the Dune is just like him from the end of Dune, like the sleeper has a
That would have been rad. Hell yeah. I like how all of the characters end up knowing each other, as well as just everybody keeps running into each other to show that the wasteland isn't that big.
Well, that was the nice thing, is like they had a very good reason for them to keep running into each other. Like Lucy puts the tracker in the head, the guy is like looking for the armor and looking for the head, and because he has the head, Lucy finds him. The Ghoul is like, eventually he's just completely lost and has to find his own way back to the story.
Oh yeah, the kid tells him the observatory.
Yeah, and then it's like
it's Griffith Observatory.
Gotta end the bloodline. Bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, God, that was so good. As well as, I swear there was a shot in there that's like a Clint Eastwood like tribute shot when he's walking out. It's so good. As well as they had the scavenger. Well, they were scavengers, but they were wearing the New Republic armor. It looked. I was like, wow, I didn't think I would want to see that. And
yeah, but it wasn't like a look. Do you see? Like, no, they have a reason to wear it.
but like a government issued
but
armor.
also the government has collapsed at this point, so it makes sense that they would have it.
As well as, it's just like, you're under arrest from the government. And I'm like, what?
The government is apparently these 3 people.
So good. And that's the dark, stupid humor of the games that's so fun. I forgot how much stuff just happens in the Fallout series, lore-based, where you'll read a holotape or whatever. You're like, oh my God, yeah, there's an entire like group of plot over here somewhere. And literally like Walton Goggins, the Ghoul, straight up says is like, goddamn all these side quests and shit.
Thou shalt get sidetracked by bullshit every goddamn time.
There's so much meat on the bone, especially all of the vaults.
Oh yeah.
Like, my God, I looked up. There's probably about 30 that have actual lore to them, but each one is just like completely different, completely crazy stuff. So the more we were watching the show, the more I'm like, oh, y'all backed a good horse, because you could do anything. There's 100 and some odd vaults. You could just make each one some weird thing, and we could watch another show about that.
So I gotta be honest, we gotta bring this back, bud. We gotta let's jump into the actual plot so we have something.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was getting back to.
All right. So the entire premise of Fallout, the Fallout show, is just like the Fallout games. You start in a vault, and something happens, and now you have a reason to leave the vault. In the first Fallout, or in Fallout 3, your dad left to do something with a super water chip to make the wastelands habitable. In Fallout 4, it was your kid got kidnapped and also synths or something. But in this one, it's like, oh yeah, we're everything's fine and we're good and everything's good except now we're being attacked by raiders and everything's bad. And then my dad got taken away by the bad guy, but who's the real bad guy?
Well, and it's reminiscent of a couple other vaults because in my research, there was one vault that was about Reclamation Day and that they're all going to go up when it's good and ready time, and that actual vault does, and it's fine.
Yeah, they're vaults that are supposed to open from as soon as like 10 to 20 years right after the war to many hundreds of years later.
Yeah, and there's one that literally just holds gold.
Yeah.
And that's its whole thing. And so it becomes like a treasure hunt. It's great. Fallout's great. Go play the game. Apparently, Fallout 4 has become the most popular game in Europe as of the show's release.
That seems like it should have been Fallout New Vegas, because as you understand, Fallout New Vegas is the best game ever made.
Well, that, and I think you shared a meme with me where it's like Fallout 3, I gotta go find my dad. Fallout 4, I gotta go find my son. Fallout the series, I gotta go find my dad. Fallout New Vegas, I gotta find the pinstriped asshole that shot me in the head. It's great.
Also, that's probably the most cinematic thing that happened in a Fallout game is just the awkward render at the beginning where the guy shoots you.
Yeah, where Matthew Perry from Friends
he
shoots you in the head.
Buries you in a very shallow grave in the desert.
I'm gonna be honest, that's why I didn't play Fallout New Vegas for a long time, because I'm like, this is stupid. I'm not playing this. And then my friend like told me later, I'm just like, no, but the intro is dumb. He's like, that's the point. It's fun because it's stupid. I'm like,
yeah, no,
it's
it's of all of them, it's the best game because it gets you into you are just out there shooting people, doing stuff, being a dude in the Fallout universe the fastest.
And it makes a lot of sense that this would be influenced by that so much, because Fallout New Vegas is the most lore, maybe not lore heavy one, but where a lot of the stuff feels like Fallout 1 and 2.
And so again, going back to the first episode, we're meeting Lucy. I cannot believe how well they like intertwined these stories and had them keep going. But like, yeah, we meet Lucy. We learn about the vault, we learn about her life, and like they set up all the questions like what goes on in a vault? What kind of things are going on here? Why are these 3 vaults connected? That we never seen that before. What's that about?
Well, that, and just like in like D&D, you have like a character sheet that has all your stats, and Lucy, we're introduced to her by her basically
her special.
Yeah,
it's called special in Fallout. Science, perception, something.
And she's laying out literally each of them to the overseers to be like, yeah, so this is why I think I should be chosen to be the breeding person for Fallout 33.
Yeah, because that's the other thing. It's like each vault values a different thing. The vaults are a long-term experiment to see how humans would survive on a generation ship, because the Enclave just kind of gave up on Earth, and they're like, we're gonna just build a big rocket ship and go to a different planet.
Yeah,
and the vaults are supposed to be different examinations of like what it would be like to survive that. And I know in the show they like kind of retcon that a bit and are more focused on like the early vaults purposes were supposed to be like watching these different ideologies play out or whatever that was supposed to be, which wasn't the worst idea. I think it makes enough sense.
It makes sense for their angle for being like, well, we have these giant like duopolies and giant companies that are holding over everything. So we're just going to let them run wild with the apocalypse. They could do whatever they want. And I think it was West Tech that was making like the aerospace stuff. So like a lot of those companies that show up in that round table, I think that was one of the major things where people were like, oh yeah, New Vegas, here's New Vegas representation, because I think it was MT and maybe not Robocon, but like, or Robco.
Yeah, Robco is in all of them.
Yeah,
that's
no,
all the robots.
I'm trying to remember another one of them that like they show up
Yeah,
and you're like, oh,
Vault
that's
Tech.
them.
Vault Tech is obviously the vaults. West Tech does a lot of the genetic engineering, if I recall. There's Robco. I don't actually think Jim's Limbs actually exists outside of
Yeah.
the TV show. I don't remember. I like looked it up. I don't think there are references to it in any of the games, but like those kinds of things where it's yeah, they'll have representation.
Yeah. And so Lucy is part of the Vault Tech kind of experiment.
Family, yes.
Yeah, the Vault Tech family, yeah. And especially that she is literal lineage from Vault 31 and the great management. I love that how much they were setting that up with that one annoying bud guy who was just like, yeah, no, everything's going to be about management in the future and time. We're going to talk about time. And a big thing in Fallout 4, the very beginning of it, is you are cryogenically frozen. That's literally the answer here. And we were like, Jessica and I were just thinking about like,
I wasn't sure if they're going to do the cryo stuff. And then when they did it, I was like, oh, thank God they didn't make it like the whole point.
yeah, as well as I was curious. Well, Jessica called out that it could have been clones because we've seen clones in the Fallout universe.
Gary.
So I was like,
Gary.
The entire Gary vault. It's so good. It's like, hey, I have this idea for a vault where I don't feel like rendering more than one character.
yeah, exactly. There's a vault where everybody goes crazy, but one dude is left. There's
everyone is one dude and they all go crazy.
No, I know. The lore is that there's a vault and that there is a cloning apparatus and that everybody does go crazy, but a couple of them are left over. And so they need to keep cloning themselves to be good. But as they keep going, it keeps degenerating more and more.
You're
to where,
a snapshot of a snapshot of a snapshot.
Yeah, to where the clone can only say the word Gary in a couple different intonations and attack you.
It's like a
They're all
Pokemon.
aggressive. Yeah. It's funny how many of these vaults just turn into, there was an experiment and then they got aggressive.
That's the entire point. That's the point that the storytellers are trying to say is like all these situations where you let one person have their one good idea and let it run amok inevitably end poorly. Like none of these vaults exist in consensus. There are a few original vaults that do very well because they are not weird experiments, but pretty much every experimental vault typically ends in some sort of horrible eldritch nonsense.
Exactly. The showing of all of the stuff in Vault, the first Vault, was fun in the way of like, this is creepy and weird and gets you into the universe. But then once you see Vault 32 and how like destructive, like everybody kills each other and how gross it is, you're like, oh, okay, what are these vaults about? What's going on?
Yeah.
And then later on, we meet a Cyclops Chris Parnell.
You're from a vault, you get it.
Who I think his name is Overseer Benjamin. And he's like, yeah, so our experiment was that everybody was doing genetic experiments on each other, but we fought back and we won our independence and now everybody's nice here. What was your experiment? She's like, what experiment? What are you talking about? We're all chill. It's great. We're Vault Tech, right? And he's like, okay, well, let's get her out of here. I don't like her. She's crazy.
That's not why they got her out of there. That was the best part, was just that he was like, you are sentenced to death by banishment.
Yeah. Because we know that you're going to die out there in the wasteland.
And that's like the exact, well, that's like the best part is like, sometimes it's not horrifying. Sometimes things are just happening because that is just what is happening.
All of the vault dwellers are all just like so peppy and nice because that's where they've been born with the Pip-Boy and the vault. But having, any sort of like realism happen to them is just hurt. It hurt watching everything happen to Lucy. My God, just such a peppy, cool person. And I was like, great, she's going to bring sunshine to the wasteland. That ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
That's awful. Oh, God.
I think that gets us to our second character to talk about, which is Maximus. I think Brotherhood of Steel is super overplayed. They're not actually that very interesting of a faction to me at all in the game. I just want the power armor and the big gun. Leave me alone.
Yeah, that's
And
where
honestly,
their intrigue begins and ends.
Hot take, the Enclave stuff's just better. I just like the Enclave stuff better because
Yeah.
their the plasma rifle is my favorite. That one was my favorite, except for the alien pistol you can
I
find.
did see a couple laser rifles, which was nice.
Yeah, you see a laser pistol, we see a laser rifle. I'm also impressed that I don't think ever hinted at the aliens, because there are aliens in Fallout. They're
I do not remember.
you never
that.
interact with them, I think, except for like, I guess in Fallout 76 there's an enemy that's called like a something wraith, which is basically like the weird goopy mutated version of one of the aliens.
Well, that's what's so funny about all the creatures you run into is you wouldn't know. Like all the mutated things, you're like, oh, that was an alien. I can't tell.
No, there's literally like you just find a crashed flying saucer, and there's like this little gun that shoots crystals, and the crystals turn people to ash.
I miss that about games. Like earlier games and I'm not trying to be a boomer here where it's like modern games suck, but like when
some modern games suck.
It just felt goofy enough that like a game you're playing that's very serious, it feels serious. You can walk up upon like, here's a crash saucer and here's a gun, and the gun turns people into crystals. Like in, what was it, Resident Evil, where you run up on the Shiba Inu dog that's controlling everything. You're like, this is awesome. This is the ending. This is my canon ending. I don't give a shit.
So going back, Maximus, Brotherhood of Steel, and I feel like we get a very different kind of Brotherhood of Steel. This is implied to be the Brotherhood of Steel that has to survive whatever happens in and after Fallout New Vegas. Because the Brotherhood of Steel, like they're a faction that exists throughout the Wasteland. You run into them in Fallout 4, obviously. You run into them in Fallout 3. They're in Fallout 76, where you can spend your life savings on a single power armor in a slightly different color. Yeah. So like the power armor, and by extension the lore that comes with them, is the same for the most part. Like they are a bit, I think they really played up the religiousness. I don't feel like I ever got the same religiosity in the game.
Very Warhammer.
Yeah. And I thought that like worked pretty well, although it was a bit exhausting where it's like, well, if they find you, they'll kill you. Why? This man is dead. Yeah. And honestly, it's like Maximus, you could have given any explanation as to why the man died, because he died of his own stupidity. I'll say like Maximus is a cool character because first of all, we're introduced to this guy. He is in this sect, much like the Lucy is a stand-in for the every main protagonist you ever play as. Maximus is a stand-in for like, there's always like one dude or a few dudes you're like kind of always running into and teaming up with. And that's what Maximus felt like to me. He exists for two very important reasons. One, he gets to introduce us to the Brotherhood of Steel and gives us an excuse to see a power armor running around doing anything without it just being silly. Two, he is an example of how choices have consequences. His entire life is because Lucy's dad decided to do a megaton.
That's a good point. Yeah. Damn.
And that is like the beauty of it, is once you learn that fact, you don't just recontextualize what we've seen in the Waste. We recontextualize how an entire character came to exist.
Yeah, damn. Well, and that was the thing that I was thinking the entire time, is I'm like, this dude's an asshole. Like, God, all of his decisions are shitty. He's just kind of annoying. I didn't dislike him, but I was like, dude, you're making me not super like you right now. And then the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, yeah, but that's probably how you gotta be in the Wasteland. Literally, nobody's giving him a hard time about it. Yeah. So yeah, it's.
And then Lucy, that was my other favorite part. Is like there's no ambiguity. Lucy is like, yeah, my name's not Titus Maximus and all this stuff. I was like, I just threw acid in a guy's face. Yeah. And he was innocent. So
this is the most genuine any human being's been with me in the Wasteland. You're great. We should get married, and you can come hang out with me in my vault. As well as, man, I as soon as they got into Vault 4, I think it was, they were, and like everything was kind of creepy. I was like, Lucy's gonna want to leave and he's gonna want to stay, and they're gonna switch their ideas. And then once it got to them switching the ideas, it was for no good reason at all. I was like, this is awesome. I love this. I love that there's no weight here.
It's also implied they would have just kicked her out and nothing bad would have happened if they didn't take that one hallway that happened to go by Maximus's room.
Yeah, exactly. He would have just been like, okay, well, where'd Lucy go? She left? Okay, I'll go join her. That's fine. I just need my power armor. And yeah, I love, he gets the core. That was such a silly way to be like, okay, we need the power armor from inside to outside. So he's going to get the core, go outside, and then be like, I guess I'll have to return the core. And that's it. And they're like, thank you. Okay, bye, everybody. And they finally get their core back from, what's his face? Thaddeus, I think was his name. And that does introduce us a little bit. Maximus steps on his foot, smushes it. He's the perfect squire. He's a good boy. But then he's like, I need to fix my foot. What am I going to do? He becomes a ghoul. And literally as soon as he like shoots up, I'm like,
as soon as he hits that vape.
Exactly.
Wait, give me the camera.
Yep.
Vaping's not cool, kids.
Not even once. Turn to a fucking
This
ghoul.
is your face on vape.
Yeah, you don't have to have any files, do you?
Which introduces us to the Ghoul, who's Cooper or something. I forgot his last name. But played by Walton Goggins' character.
I've enjoyed that guy. When he shows up and stuff, I'm not usually that like upset, but I'm not excited. He killed it.
Damn, y'all ain't got me working up an appetite.
He played the role of like the straight-faced, like, I can't believe that I'm like, my wife is doing this and I'm like going through this conspiracy and these things are incredible and horrifying and sad all at the same time. Perfectly spliced with, I do not give a shit, bang, 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 bang.
Well, the tomatoes.
They did such a good job with him, as well as like the idea of ghouls in general. I think they played it up really well as like this tragic part of humanity that's like these people that were literally like left by all of the giant mega corporations to just be like, good luck, I don't give a crap.
Actually, I just realized there are no super mutants in the entire show.
There was one tiny nod in Vault 4, sending one of the gurneys out, and you can see a super mutant's hand. So it's assumed that that was one of the experiments, I guess. And
there's like some virus that was supposed to basically create the super mutants.
The forced evolution virus.
Yeah, that's the super mutants, but that happens in a specific vault on the East Coast. But I definitely remember there being super mutants on the West Coast. They can walk.
Yeah. But Walton Goggins' character was so good, the Ghoul. And just going through his entire backstory of like who he was and who he is now, and starting off in that first scene of him in the, you know, Pip-Boy, Vault Boy outfit, and being like, oh, well, this is kind of fun. He's kind of a cool character. And wondering why he's like degraded himself to this point, where I assume he was like putting on a show for Vault-Tec people, because he kind of became like a dancing monkey.
Yeah, it's like that's a beautiful part, is that you have this character who is complicit in the creation of this world, even though he is completely naive to any part of it until Moldaver makes him question anything.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he also has to reap what he has sown by being a ghoul for like the next 200 years or however long. It's implied he gets into a vault and probably gets kicked out of a vault at some point.
Either that, or maybe he got his daughter into the vault and he didn't get in, or he got his daughter into whoever that vault was that they were there at the party. But him, doing the whole thing and being like, I don't want to do the thumbs up. It's kind of bad right now. And the best part is, with like hindsight, you know that he knows that his wife is one of the people that is totally cool with like destroying America and causing the nuclear holocaust that would happen from nuclear armament, and then literally being there when it happens and being like, that was exactly what I knew would happen. I was spying in, and my daughter is here, and like literally it happened without us being able to get into a vault. Like my wife didn't even tell us, so we don't even know what happened.
Which is the weird part, because she at least plays up the idea that she's very worried about their daughter.
Yes.
And cares about her a lot. But like, if that was the case, it's very much implied that Vault-Tec is like the reason the war actually happened.
By dropping the bomb ourselves.
Capitalism is why the war happened. Well, no country was more eager for war than capitalism was.
Yeah, well, two things were solidified by the show that I know of, which was apparently the holding the thumb up and winking thing, which is like a fun little like, ha, look, smile. But yeah, is apparently in the show the idea that like if you hold your thumb up and look at it through one eye.
That's the game.
No, but apparently that wasn't like solidified for a couple like games.
I can't imagine. That's one of those things where it's like you knew it the whole time and then someone finally says it out loud. Like the Statue of Liberty used to be a lighthouse. Sure. Yeah, everyone knew that.
Well, I don't know. I could be like saying it, but apparently that was one of the things that Todd Howard's like, that's exactly why it's there. Here is a deliberate thing of someone saying it. That's why he does this look. Even though like Walden
also he's supposed to be the Vault Boy. That was the best thing for me. It's like, I thought he was just a spokesman. It's like, nope.
Yep, that's him. He's doing it. But not only the thumbs up, but also the idea that the that Vault-Tec did start at least the first nuke. Like they started the whole thing. So apparently those were two things that were kind of up in the air, but they're deliberately like, now here's literally a text you can point to that says it. As well as when they're talking about it, the wife says war never changes.
Oh yes.
War never changes.
Oh, delicious.
So good. If only they put on Ron Perlman's voice to say it.
War never changes.
That's the thing, is like, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about the Vault-Tec actual employees. Like Bud is obviously just like a kind of generic yes man. Basically only succeeds because he knows how to suck up.
Yeah.
And the wife, whose name I completely forgot, she seems like an extremely competent person. And it's not super clear to me why she has chosen to be complicit to these dudes.
Well, that's what I mean is she just talks about money and the fact that like this is going to, she actually doesn't even talk about money. He's like, hey, I have enough money for us to do anything. Go to a cabin, whatever. Yeah. But she sees the writing on the wall that like, if I want our family to survive, we need a vault. And for us to get into a good vault, we need to go to these ones.
It guarantees us a spot in the vault.
We've got money. We can buy a spot in the vault.
One of the good vaults.
In your head, you're just like, oh, so there are bad vaults. I wonder what the bad vaults are about. And it's so well done, so well written. But I feel like that's probably the reason why she is so complicit in all of this. It just shows us a level of evil in everybody that's a Vault-Tec, that they're all complicit in the idea that's like, yeah, that'll happen, whatever. And then the doofus that keeps like bothering like Cooper the entire time is just like, hey, yeah, no, I love your movies, but also, did you know management and time? He's actually like a pretty high up dude talking to every other giant conglomerate being like, no, this will be great. Because we all need stock prices to go up, and for stock prices to go up, we need demand, and for demand to happen, we need literally nuclear Armageddon. So it is the logical conclusion to a company that needs to make sure their shareholders get their money. They have a fiduciary responsibility, I think he says, to make sure that they make money. And for a company that makes bomb shelters, how do you make sure that people are going to buy bomb shelters? It's incredibly well done as like a little parable.
And this is where, if you want to, we can get into some of the backstory, because like everything about the world building, I was impressed by how well they kind of honored it in the show, because the entire premise of Fallout is McCarthyism doesn't go away. Basically, after World War II, when we start having the Red Scare, McCarthyism becomes the status quo. If you want someone to just stop being relevant in the world, you call them a communist.
Communist. Cadillac Bob? Cadillac Bob, the very one. Oh, what a shame. He's such a great writer.
And let society do the rest for you. And as a result, to show that like communists are not winning, or that they're not communists, they can't change, because change could be communism. It could be bad. And that's why so much technology and aesthetics stay the same as this like post 1950s America as society continues moving forward until 2077. And the entire time they're having this like continuous conversation between like countries are like, we're not particularly interested in all of humanity dying. There's, I think, 3 main wars that matter. And these wars are all resource wars, where like first it's about oil, obviously, then it's about like materials, and finally it's about the ability to eat and exist. Ironically, none of those wars end in a worldwide nuclear cataclysm. There are nuclear strikes on different places. Like Tel Aviv gets nuked in these stories. Yeah.
Jesus.
Somehow not leading to a worldwide nuclear event. And that's supposed to say that like these were wars where resources were fought for between countries. And obviously America, being the best country who is doing the least communisms, is going to do such a good job.
Sure.
But it also shows you that the communists survived well past or the larger fall of communism we experienced with the USSR. So like China, it just becomes the communist superpower it still is. Like everything about it is like, it's kind of weird how that's still happening.
Oh God, wow, that's crazy. Wow, that's crazy.
There's like this fear of nuclear war, which leads to the government being like, we should probably build more bomb shelters for all of our people. And then this leads to more embezzlement, because the United States government issues a bunch of junk bonds to pay for the vaults. And they turn into a giant embezzlement scheme where these companies that you see in that like round table that are supposed to be creating the lifeboats for the future of not humanity, just the United States, just Americans, aren't even doing that job. By the time the Great War happens, where they actually do the big war, that actually, I think it was just Europe and Middle East fighting the Sino-American War, and then the Great War. But the point is, when the Great War happens, like 0.1% of the US population, if they all ran as quickly as they could to the nearest vault, would have been able to get into a vault.
Well, there's one explicit vault that is deliberately like meant to be the luxurious one. I think it's meant to be on the East Coast. And apparently like, it's like, wow, you're going to have so much room and everything. It's meant for the elite. And it's like super cramped and nobody did anything. And all the money went just to people's pockets, as well as the one that we talked about that is just gold. Apparently a bunch of the people working there took a bunch of that money and went to Las Vegas and like bet on whatever, because the entire idea of this world is that everybody is of course not going to do what's in everyone's best interest, but just in their own best interest. And they literally say that with the movie he works on is called Gun. Like the Cooper's character, where he's just like about to shoot a guy, he's like, do I need to shoot him? Why would I do it? He's like, because you're not a communist, because you're a patriot. and you're a singular person, and a singular person is the most important thing. And so he shoots him, and I think he says, "Die, communist," or something.
I hope you like the taste of lead, you communist son of a bitch.
Like, he deliberately says propaganda, and it's like straight up that point that like this is every character is supposed to exude this entire ideal. I love that when he's talking to Moldaver, he's like, "I'm an American." Why would, like, stands up in the middle of that meeting? It's like, "I believe in America," and she's like, "So do I." People just call communism whatever they don't like.
I'm not a communist, Mr. Howard. That's just a dirty word they use to describe people who aren't insane.
Ooh, well done. Very well done show.
To bring it back around, so that is kind of the beauty of, he represents both the lie of the past and the like very harsh reality of the present as the Ghoul, in that he has become this mask off ugly thing where he used to once be like literally the face of he was literally the face of the vault. He was the face of America because he represented all of these things that the government was trying to do. I mean, you hear it at the beginning of the show where they're talking about like, no one knows where the president is. That is the Enclave making its first move, because they go to like basically an offshore oil rig and just hang out there while the nukes fall and just keep running all the experiments from there.
Oh god.
Yeah, like the Enclave is like, at no point is the Enclave like done hanging out and doing stuff.
I appreciate that as a framing device to have the Ghoul be this like kind of time traveler in a way, where he's jumping between like all the stuff that happened before the war, why the war happened, what it's about, why all of these things have proliferated, and then once we get back to the modern time, we see him just being a cold and upset dude who's like, "I don't care. This place is a wasteland. It sucks. I get that you're like this peppy little girl that's like, oh, everything's sunshine and rainbows, but I can tell, like, this sucks. And you're going to find out one way or the other. I'm going to make you find out." And that his connection to her was so silly, because when you hear that everybody's just like, "Oh, Hank McClane? Oh, you're a McClane?"
McClane?
Oh, is his dad like a big important person? But when you find out that he's just a fucking middle manager, and that he happened to meet him once, was so so good that you're just like, oh, there has to be some big exciting thing behind it, when he literally shook his hand once when he was listening in on his wife sell out all of humanity to make a quick buck. Like, so well done.
I think one of the most fun things that they do, they take every little thing about Fallout and they make it feel like Fallout. Like we were talking about earlier about how they make the choices.
Yeah.
There's like a character like, "Oh, there's a monster here. I should probably be." Oh, it's behind me. God damn it.
Yeah.
Like they have so many of these small moments where I just remembered experiencing that exact crap in the game.
Yeah, where you're hanging out and then that axolotl thing, I'm trying to remember. Oh,
Yeah,
Gulper shows up and just eats the thing. God, so gross. But in the game, from what I remember, it just looks like a big like toad kind of thing. It looks like a big
there's
salamander.
I was surprised they didn't do any Mirelurks, the weird crab dudes.
Yeah.
Because those things sucked. And then also they couldn't do a Deathclaw.
I was waiting for a
couldn't do
Deathclaw.
it.
I was waiting for them to be doing literally anything important, and then a Deathclaw shows up and they're like, "I drop it. Whatever we're doing, I don't care. We need to get out of here right now." God, that would have been
I
so
thought
good.
the bear was going to be a Deathclaw when we first ran into it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was a little impressed that, like, because like, that's the other problem is Deathclaws are so freaking awful to deal with. You can't waste them. Like, we have to save Deathclaws for, if we're going to do another season or whatever the show, we got to save Deathclaws for something.
I did love that they at least had a nod with the skull when at the very end when Hank is going to New Vegas. I was like, cool. That works out.
And he also, like, I think that was like a nice piece of like, this is canonically New Vegas. This was for New Vegas.
Yeah.
Vegas is still around. All that stuff happened.
Yeah.
Because like House is also a very interesting character in that he was like supposed to be part of the Enclave, but he's like, I don't want to go to an oil rig. You know, I'll stay here. And the only reason Vegas survived is because he like put his own assets into like an ICBM like deterrence system that was able to like block, I think like 60 something out of the 72 missiles that were supposed to hit Vegas.
All the stuff that I read about New Vegas, because I haven't played much of it, so like everything I read about it, that I was like, this is cool. This game is cool. I should have played more of it. And yeah, everything about Robert House and all the stuff that he does. Apparently, the one vault over there, he won in a game of blackjack, and then he was gonna just cement it over to be like, all of you need to come out and pay me now. And they're just like, but what if we turned it into a hotel? And he's like, fine. I guess we could do that. It's like, it'll get you money. He's like, I guess.
I mean, he's still alive if you didn't kill him in the game.
Well, that's something else I want
Actually,
to bring
he's
up.
technically still alive even if you do kill him in the game.
Well, yeah, exactly. That there are parts of the game that, like, endings that technically can't have happened because of a small change in the show. If the show is canonical, there is, from what I remember, or at least that I read, that apparently when you're fighting the Brotherhood of Steel, if you blow up their big blimp, then that leads to another ending separately. But if you join the Minutemen or the Brotherhood of Steel, then that stays intact. In the end of the show, during the season finale, you see the giant blimp. So it is assumed that that didn't happen.
Or the first episode of the show too.
Well, yeah, but so it's assumed that that ending didn't happen. So I am frankly okay with the fact that the show is saying there is a timeline that we're using, that these things happened, and that's fine. So everybody that I saw online is, but what about this and this and this and this? It's like, it's all canon. Whatever. Who cares? It's Todd Howard's like, the show's good. We're going to make sure that it's good, and that's all that it matters. You want to see the thing on screen? We're going to put the thing on screen, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah. So
you want to talk about some Easter eggs?
I do like eggs.
In the background, during the first episode, when they have the cool like film reel playing on the background of their big cornfield, you see the "Please stand by" image that is in the loading screen of Fallout 3, which I really like seeing. When they are doing the little hacking, when the brothers doing the
that
hacking.
made me so happy.
That was so good. It was perfect. It was exactly it. Yes. As well as you see the Vault Boy walking loading screen. I was very happy with that. The thing that I was surprised is that they kept taking off their Pip-Boy. I don't know why I was so upset about that, because that was
not like built into their arm.
In Fallout 3 it was.
I don't remember there being a biological integration component. It's basically supposed to be like a really over-the-top Apple smartwatch.
Because I remember, I don't know, I could be completely misremembering this, and they probably have changed it, of course, because it was in this. But I remember that it literally was welded on your arm and you can't remove it, and that was the thing.
I mean, that could have been true in that one vault.
Sure. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, good point.
Because all the vaults are different, and the Pip-Boys could have been different, and so on and so forth.
Love seeing the stim pack. Stim pack looked great. And I appreciate that it totally made all of the injuries in the show that you were like, oh, in an actual show, this would be like a catastrophic thing. A dog got stabbed. Poor doggy. Yeah.
Just to remind you, the Ghoul is not a good person.
Yeah, but then he like gives him a stim and he's fine. And I'm like, cool. That's good with me. That's a good explanation for that. So fun seeing stim packs.
I gotta say real fast, something I'm super glad, I hope they never bring this up, because I think this was the stupidest goddamn thing in Fallout 4 was the synths. To like people.
Yeah.
I was like really worried they were going to do that at some point, because I just do not care about them. They were so annoying and so stupid. It was a bad plot line. I did not care for it.
Yeah, and the closest thing, well, not even the closest thing, but yeah, seeing the Mr. Hands or Mr. Handy, played by Matt Berry, who's from What We Do in the Shadows.
It's fucking awful.
And I love that the actor was there and he like plays, he's like, I sold away my rights to be Cogsworth. This is great. And then when I first heard him, I'm like, that's Matt Berry. What is he doing here? Oh yeah, now he shows up later to be like, I signed away my rights. But it's okay because we're making so much money, right? How much do you make? Well, what did you get, like $10 million? He's like, I did it for like 100,000. This is great showing that people literally need to sell off the rights themselves to live in this society. And then we see that as Cogsworth. Loved it. Very good. I had a moment where I was like, okay, when he's doing the big shootout, the Ghoul, and people's bodies are exploding, I'm like, I remember incendiary rounds, but I don't remember them being like that. Apparently what I looked up is that there's called a bloody mess perk that you can get that does that makes explosives. And so the idea that people have said is that he had the bloody mess perk on when he destroyed part of Philly.
When you kill someone, there's like a few different animations I can play. So obviously they just die and their corpse falls down. They explode and there are bits of sinew everywhere, or they turn to like a pile of ash. And the funny thing is, when they turn into, this is more so for when they turn into bits of sinew, if you go to any nugget of sinew, you can raid their entire inventory. So I remember there was like one time where I was like, I couldn't find what happened to the corpse, but I found like a toe right next to me.
So you just looted the toe?
Yes.
As well as, it felt like the Ghoul was the closest thing to an actual player character, because though Lucy is like, oh yeah, this is technically your actual story, and Maximus is like, cool, you get to be in the armor and that's fun. But like, he was the closest to, I found a body, I'm gonna loot it, I'm gonna take its skin and stuff like that, I'm gonna take its teeth.
Yeah, there's like a cannibalism perk in the game. There's a bunch of perks that they put on screen. I was glad they didn't do the gunslinger or something. There's one perk when you enter VATS mode, there's like a coin flip chance that a random dude will show up and just start shooting guys on your behalf.
Yeah, God. Having played through the games, and I hate cockroaches living in Florida and being like, this sucks. I never want to see a cockroach in any video game. Oh, here's a giant one. I hate it. Then seeing it in the show, no. I was so mad.
Wait, one more thing I gotta talk about. Fred Armistead.
Yeah. I forgot about
Because that's the other thing is like, at first I was a little annoyed by it, but then at some point it like finally went back to being endearing, was how they continuously kept playing the songs that you hear in the different Fallout games.
Yeah.
And being like, yeah, we have the rights to the song. What you gonna do about it? But at the same time, that is a weirdly, the radio station is as much of a companion to you as like Dogmeat or a lot of other stuff, because it changes based on what you do. And you can choose which channels you're listening to and what kind of like things are playing. And I love the part where he's like, we are not taking requests. Like set up all the traps.
But I agree that, yeah, there are parts of the game that show up that's like, oh, this feels like it. This the radio's on. It feels like that. Nuka-Cola was very prominent. And they didn't explain the money system. They didn't explain what a cap is and why you need it. And I know, I was just very happy. It was like, this will be 5 caps. It was like, cool. What is that? Who knows? Go play the damn game. It's fine. And then the one thing that they didn't do, which I'm okay with, but I think we need to retract what we said about how Fallout isn't cinematic, because you mentioned the VATS aiming system. And the one thing that I was surprised they didn't do in one way or the other is the VATS aiming system, because it's so iconic. And for those of you that don't know, when you stumble upon somebody, you can turn on VATS aiming and it will show you the percentage chance you have of hitting a certain part of the body, which is similar to the Fallout 1 and 2 games, because that one's an RPG. You're not supposed to be bang, bang shooting things. And once you do that, it goes into a cinematic camera view, and then you see how that played out. And it's really fun if you're a teenager when this came out and you just see a body explode into a million pieces.
And you're also like, no good at just shooting the gun.
Yeah, it's great. It's perfect. Turns it into an RPG more or less. So like a turn-based RPG kind of. I don't know if it's really upsetting that we didn't see that.
Oh,
but
I'm glad they didn't do anything like that.
But the closest thing was the attack on Philly that the Ghoul did.
I really wished I'd gotten one shot of like one of them getting a horrific injury and they look at their Pip-Boy and it just like is the Vault Boy guy like, oh no, your leg is broken.
Well, yeah, he's just like he's like panting. That would have been so good. Yeah, or he's like in the crutches. Oh, that would have been great. That's the thing. The show is campy enough. When she turns on and is like flicking through the Pip-Boy, you see these giant menus. It was good enough. Totally fine. When she's putting in the coordinates, totally fine. I think that they tackled so much of that stuff really well that I was completely satisfied. So let me go down the list of a couple of weird vaults that I wanted to talk about, because some of them are just really stupid and frankly don't even make sense for you to put them like as their own thing besides a holotape entry. Before I do that really quick though, funny enough, apparently that there is there's a group of people that are thirsting after the Ghoul, which, man, they did that makeup really well. I was surprised that his nose.
They did a mostly practical job there.
Yes, yeah, but they did the straight up Voldemort, removing his nose, and it looked great. Like you can kind of see in there, it's like a cave. But there's a lot of thirst traps now for him. It's just a Ghoul with like red skin. It's crazy. Besides that, IGN actually made a character like the special list for each of the characters.
That's awesome.
Yes. I will put them up on screen now, but they give Lucy like relatively low strength, high perception, and high luck, which I think is fair, and like higher intelligence and endurance. Not too much charisma, not too much agility. The Ghoul, definitely high charisma and high agility and high endurance. Higher perception, but very low intelligence and medium strength, low luck. And then for Maximus, high strength, high agility, okay perception, okay endurance, average charisma, low intelligence, and average luck. I think that's fine. I mean, for the games, it makes sense if this is just a stock character you're starting with. But yeah, in the show, it kind of felt that. It kind of felt that the Ghoul wasn't particularly smart, but he was fine. And that Lucy's not very lucky at all. Especially when they cut off her finger. I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. But then, of course, it's Fallout. Most injuries are not permanent.
Yeah, you can regrow limbs and stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so vault time. The first one that I wanted to bring up is the fact that in Fallout 1, there is the very first thing you need to do is that a water chip is messed up, and you need to go out and fix it. You are trying to fix Vault 13's water chip, and even though you fix it, they kick you out anyway. But that's kind of like the main thing. In the show, they have a moment where there's kind of some dissent over who's going to be the new overseer, and literally a guy walks up and he's just like, "Hey, the overseer usually wants to talk about this one-on-one." He's like, "Well, you can say it to everybody because we don't have an overseer." "Oh, the water chip's screwed up."
The water chip is destroyed. The vault only has enough water to keep our population alive for 2 months.
That doesn't come up again? Like, they just kind of wave it off? So I think it was kind of a reference to Fallout 1.
So the water chip is in Fallout 3. It is like the entire point of Fallout 3 is your dad basically finds a way to make a water chip that runs, like that's like built into water filtration system built into the Potomac to just clean all the water so that the wastelands will be livable. That's like a choice you have to make. It's like, do we like save this technology? Like that's kind of like the cold fusion thing at the end, where it's like, is this technology just for the Brotherhood? Is this technology just for the Enclave? Is this technology for everyone?
Well, especially, everything's just a resource war, of course,
Exactly.
at the end of the...
Because that's the only kind of war that there is left.
Yeah. And also, your dad is played by Liam Neeson in Fallout 3. It's great. I forgot about that until recently. The fact that like so many of these vaults really are just arbitrary. One that I really liked, which I need to find the number for, was a vault in which there was an AI that kept telling everybody that as soon as you get in, you are going to need to sacrifice one person every year forever. And so people started saying that, okay, well, we want,
Okay, no, you gotta say it.
So we want, we're just going to elect an overseer, and the overseer will die once every year. And we're going to elect a new one and a new one and a new one. And there's some drama that happens. But then at one point they have a bloody revolt, and then only 5 people are left, and they like killed everybody else. And those 5 people are like, you know what? We've had a good run. I don't care. We'll die at the end of this year. We're not going to do anything. They don't do anything. And then as soon as that timer has run up, the computer says, "Hey, congratulations for not doing such a bloody and disgusting thing. Now we've opened the door, so you can leave if you'd like." And apparently all of those people go insane because they realize that they didn't need to do that for however many generations. Apparently most of them end up unaliving themselves. Great stuff. Very chipper thing for the Fallout series.
I do like my Fallout.
You also have a bunch that were genetically modified things, especially Vault 22. They had a bunch of plants. Plants started making fungi. Fungi ended up infecting people, turning them into big monsters.
If I recall, so yes, they're infecting people. You basically are in the situation where like you're somehow surprised you're constantly getting spooked, but like that's the one where it's like a bunch of different plot lines are converging and you get to decide like, do I leave this alone? This has the potential to exist.
Oh yeah,
Does it have
I
any
forgot about
agency?
That. Another one that was ridiculous is Vault 34, which gave them unrestricted access to guns. And so apparently a bunch of factions started being created because a group decided to lock down the armory. The overseer said like, "I'm locking down the armory. You get no more guns." And so some of them left and became literal boomers. They're called boomers. Hilarious. While the other ones turned on the overseer, and the overseer turned them all into ghouls. Vault 69.
Nice.
And we know very little about it. The only thing I read up on is that it held 999 women and 1 man.
Nice.
Vault 69. Vault 75, eugenics, which with a bunch of kids. And so apparently the kids were trained to be super soldiers. And then once they turned 18, all of the ones that became super soldiers were killed. And the ones that were weak got turned into scientists. And then they kept doing it over and over and over again.
I'm trying to remember which vault was in Fallout 3. There's a vault where they're all kids. Either you can go through this irradiated wasteland or you can go through these underground caves to like get to this place, and there's like a named gun there because they're like named guns in the game that are more powerful than the regular guns. That one's like one of the vaults is just like a bunch of kids.
And then Vault 77, which is the Puppet Man. Do you know about the Puppet Man? It's a vault in which a guy was locked in there by himself with a bunch of puppets.
I do know this. I do know this one. And he goes insane because he's just projecting his identity onto the puppets.
Well, one of them dies. Like, he's like, "Oh my God, someone killed the puppet. Who could it have been?" And then the vault boy, like puppet, is just like, "Oh, we got to get out of here. You got to get out of here. Somebody killed I think it was like a king puppet. I'm trying to remember which puppet died." So he leaves, and then he gets caught by a bunch of, I think they're raiders. And then he's just like, "Guys, you can't let that puppet over there that I took with me out of your sight because he's a killer." And so he himself is like the actual killer, and he's terrified.
Wait, he was the killer?
Yeah.
I thought the puppet was the killer.
Well, no, but that he gets away. He's now a psychopath. And apparently in, I think it was Fallout 4, you find a Vault 77 jumpsuit. No, you find a holotape, and it's people trying to burn a Vault 77 jumpsuit because they think the Puppet Man is going to come get them. It's awesome. I love it. I love that shit. Vault 79, we mentioned 79 is the atomic number for gold. That's the one that basically was like Fort Knox and held all the gold. And a bunch of the people were embezzling the money and went to Vegas before they locked it down. But after they locked it down, everybody was pretty miserable. So it was derelict and like kind of left. And so you, I think in either Fallout 3 or Fallout 4, are sent on a treasure hunt to go find it and get all of that gold. Vault 95 I thought was cool because it was an apparent experiment to get people off chems. Like there were a bunch of chem addicts. And so like, cool, we're trying to get you all off chems. They had no drugs in the place. Apparently everybody actually was doing very well and on the straight and narrow for a while. Until an agent who was one of the experimenters, I don't think they were the overseer, found a bunch of drugs. And then we're like, wow, look at all these drugs I found. And then it turned into mutiny and everybody freaked out about the drugs. Some people tried to stay cool, others didn't. And I think they end up probably killing the overseer. It's just mutiny.
Almost all these stories end with someone kills the overseer.
In Vault 106, the air filtration unit was infected with psychotropic drugs. Nice. And so, yeah, this was the one where they just kept pumping drugs through. So everybody was kind of in a stupor. Of course, they end up getting aggressive. And so by the time you show up there in, I think it's Fallout 3, there's just people being violent. But then you start seeing like visions of some of the other characters and like you go through kind of a vision quest. I think that's interesting as a narrative strategy, but also like so many of these experiments are so dumb. Why would you do any of these things? And I appreciate that at the end of the show, they loop it all together with just a bunch of megalomaniacal like gajillionaires being like, we could do this. We could have one run by robots. Why not? Who cares? It doesn't really matter. We're just playing Calvin Ball with the human race. But the last one that I want to end on, which I think is incredible, and I wish I never played this quest, which is Vault 118, which is exclusive for wealthy people. But they realized that they were like, okay, well, we're rich, but like, how are we going to survive for this entire time in this vault? So they all put their brains into robots. And these are all like actors. So it reminds me of like that acting robot from Futurama. Yeah. So they're all playing it up, but then one of them dies and you need to solve the murder. And so your quest in this vault is a murder mystery with robot actors and you're interviewing all of them. So that's the one I want to end on. I think all of the armor in the show was really cool to look at, all of the Easter eggs. The T-660 armor was so fucking funny. Like this big chunky, like everything he did looked so dumb and cartoony. Perfectly fit. The show was dark, it was humorous, it was silly,
no notes,
it was gross. No notes, great time. It makes sense that it is the #1 on Amazon right now and changed the gaming trajectory of Europe to Fallout 4 being the most popular game.
Still should be Fallout New Vegas. Don't understand what's going on. Fallout New Vegas, I think, has better mods.
Yeah, no, Fallout New Vegas is like a darling. Yeah, everybody has spent so much tender love and care on that.
Like Fallout 3 also has pretty good mods. It's still like patching. That's the thing I wanted to say real fast about the Fallout games. I think if you like the Fallout games, enjoy them. They're good games in terms of, yeah, you can go and you do your little RPG stuff and you hang out. And if you like because I loved the Fallout universe and I was glad to see it actually like meaningfully represented. But at the end of the day, like, I think people like the games they like for a reason.
And the last thing I want to say is how we haven't talked about AI art for a while, but the meme that went viral is the fact that the lead protagonist is walking around in just regular jumpsuit clothing. And so someone went in and AI arted her butt to be a form-fitting pant and be like, wow, I can't believe you guys couldn't at least get her butt right. And then everybody's like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you?
We're all enjoying something. We're all having fun.
I hate you. I hate this. I hate the internet. So thank you all for watching. Goodbye.
Wait.
Yeah. Wink.